Hey, g'day people, it's Matt here from Matt Carve. So we are carving part 2 of the whale spirit challenge today. So this is the whale that I carved in part 1, and in part 2, which is this part, we're going to carve a stand for the whale. And I had a few ideas, but I came up with this idea of it resting on a wave. So here we go, we've got the wave here, and you can sort of see when I put the whale on, it's going to sort of like sit like that on top of the wave. And we're going to put a wood spirit in that wave as well. I haven't quite decided where we're going to put it yet. And this challenge is put on by Studio on the Lake, Ben over there. And so some of these will be given away. I believe my one is going to be given away to some lucky person, probably in New Zealand and or Australia. We're not quite sure of that yet, but we will figure that out. So I've done the major shaping with the bandsaw. As you can see there, I can sort of like take it apart, and it's almost there. Well, it's actually not almost there. I've got to refine it and put in real details and all of that, but the bandsaw is so good at taking out the majority and just giving you like a general shape. And there I am using the wand sander, the finger sander, and it's really good for sort of like these bigger kind of carvings, sort of just getting in sort of like smoothing off, and it actually takes off more than the Kutzall burr. But you can use the Kutzall burr if you don't have a finger sander, because they are actually quite expensive. And just remember, when you're using that flame burr to do sort of like convexes, keep it moving fast and it won't dig in, so leaving a hollow. And also keep that pressure quite light on it to moderate, because if you put too much pressure on, it will dig into the wood. Now we've got the general shape of the wave, and I want to put in sort of like lines because I kind of think that's kind of a little bit too boring. And I also want to put in a wood spirit, and I'm thinking of right there on the face of the wave. And you can see I'm using that inverted diamond burr, and I do it one way and then the other way just to increase the size of those little valleys in there, and then I'm going to soften them out in the end. But at the moment I'm just putting them in to see where they go, and we will really round off the edges as we go along towards the end. And as we go sort of like into these really narrower parts, I'm going to use a really small burr, because those bigger burrs aren't going to make it around these small corners, or curves, they're not corners. And I always have links in the description to most of the burrs and tools that I use in this video. Hey, so if you guys want to hit that like button, that would be awesome. It really helps the channel out, and yeah, it's just a good thing to do. It's pretty easy, just hit that like button. And I carved this little wood spirit quite a while ago, but I'm just showing you that I carved this on a corner, so the nose on this is kind of sticking out anyway, whereas this one is on the flat. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to sort of like so go on an angle at the sides of the face to almost try and make it into a corner. And the kind of face, you don't want it to sort of like sit flat, it sort of has got to sort of like curve around. So if you don't do that, it's always going to be sort of like seem quite flat, the face. And you can sort of see the forehead there, that is quite flat. I'm going to round that out as we go. And we're just putting in some details here. I'm putting in the eyes. I'm going to have sort of like sleeping eyes. They're the easiest when it sort of like gets to this kind of size, which is quite small. And the trick with sleeping eyes is just to sort of like make the kind of shape and have sort of like the underneath kind of a little bit sharp, just so it's sort of like cast a shadow. And now we're using the Kutzall fine taper burr, and it's really good to sort of like shape the moustache out and maybe put the mouth in sort of like a general kind of shape of everything. And then we will go in with a diamond burr, because this is quite soft wood. This is macrocarpa, which is probably a little bit harder than basswood. So yeah, just sort of continual shaping here, and just looking at it, continually look at the sculpture from different angles. And I might try and put the mouth in there, so you can see it's kind of forming. It's quite easy. I tend to go straight along. You want to put a little bit of a curve on there, but not too much, as it looks like, I don't know, he's whistling or something like that. And sometimes I will use a drill bit to do really, really fine lines, sort of get underneath the nose and all of that. I just can't sort of like get under there with other kinds of burrs. And this drill bit is less than 1 millimeter. I think it's like a 0.8 of a millimeter in diameter, which is very, very small. So you want to be very, very careful with it and not put too much pressure on it, as it will snap. And I'm using the inverted diamond burr to put in the mustache hairs, and I try to keep sometimes the mustache hairs to sort of like big bold shapes, not sort of like heaps of fine lines. I think especially on this one where we've got the bold lines on the outside of the wave, it kind of will tie in a little bit better and make it look kind of a bit more part of it. So now I am going to soften out those sort of like areas, so there's no kind of sharp areas, and it seems quite soft, like a wave kind of should be, I guess. And for those sort of like narrow parts, I've been using that diamond burr. I've used this quite a bit. It's from Master Carver. I'm not an affiliate link with them, but I very much like this, just the shape of this burr. It's really kind of handy. It's like a flame burr. And it's quite good for sort of like doing the face and all of that kind of stuff, where you can't get the sort of like sandpaper in there and all of that kind of stuff. So it's just sort of like good for those final touches. I don't sort of like, with this kind of sculpture, I won't try and do every kind of part perfectly, but sort of like try and get maybe the cheeks quite smooth, and the major kind of parts in the hair and the nose and all of that kind of stuff, maybe the forehead. That's kind of all of it, isn't it? But you know, kind of what I mean. I'm not going to waste a huge amount of time trying to sort of like define certain areas, because I kind of like the rustic look, and we're just using a little bit of sandpaper there, just going over just roughly over the whole thing. It's very fine sandpaper. Okay, so we're going to use a blue wood dye. This is from Wax, and it's a spirit-based wood dye. I think I've actually got a little bit of yellow in there as well, because I think it turned a little bit green. But anyway, it looks pretty good. So you can sort of see there, it really soaks into the wood. It looks pretty cool like that. But I'm going to put on a mahogany wax over, and the wax is from Liberon. But firstly, I'm going to sand back so it brings the highlights out. And then the wax will sort of like go into the deeper recesses of the wave and sort of darken those up. Minnie, do your little dance. Wow, yeah, good stuff. Nice. Minnie, sit. Yes, good dog.